So if I'm gonna play, I've got to play on your team and not against you. All right, we're ready. Okay, I'd like to call to order the Highland Park Board of Education Hybrid Special Voting Workshop meeting for today, Thursday, July 10th, 2025. The New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meetings of the public bodies at which any business affecting their interest is discussed or acted upon. In compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act, the Highland Park Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting, setting forth the time, date, and location to be submitted for publication to the Home News Tribune and Courier News and posted on the board's website at least 48 hours in advance of this meeting. Members of the public who wish to address the board will be given the opportunity to do so before the board adjourns for the evening. Can we do a roll call?
Dr. Beatty,
Here.
Ms. Cassell Dunn,
Here.
Dr. Coleman, Dr. Pixley,
Here.
Ms. Preuss, Dr. Schoolman,
Here.
Ms. Stanio,
Here.
Ms. Bardman,
Here.
Ms. Voorhees.
Sarah just got here. Denise.
She said here.
Oh, she did. Great. Okay, I didn't hear it. Thank you. Sorry.
Thank you.
Okay, now let us stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Okay, as this is a special hybrid voting and workshop meeting, we only have one agenda item that will be voted on today. First, we're going to do a board discussion of that agenda item, which is the approval of before and after care program provider. And then we will do public comment, where everyone will have the opportunity to speak. We'll do people who are in the room first, and then people who are here online. And then after that is the board action items. So I would just like to take a moment to go over why we're having this meeting today and how we got here. It came to our attention it came to the board's attention in April of this year that our current before and after care program was in severe financial distress. In order to deal with that, we went to our financial auditors and received a recommendation from the auditors that we should outsource the program. It is very important when you're dealing with these kind of financial issues for auditors. This could impact our financial future moving forward, how we're going to be able to bond or do a referendum or any of the things that we might need to be able to do in the future in order to support the infrastructure of our schools. In May, so this came to our attention, we reported it in the April meeting. In May, we voted on a RFP to enact an RFP. That's a request for proposals. We did this, right?
We voted to approve the competitive contracting model for the RFP, which allows us to award a contract based on price and other factors.
And that's important. That's different than the way the RFP process was done 2 years ago, which was a lowest bid model. This one allowed us to take into consideration of the programs, not just financial considerations, but also programming and staffing, management. So once we voted on that, we then formed a committee that involved administration, board members, and a parent involved in the after-school program. to review the 5 different proposals that we received for our after-school program. The result of that committee was that Champions came in first. And therefore, through that process, that means that if we are going to award a contract, we must award it to Champions. It's a legal process doing an RFP, and there's really important reasons why RFPs are done that way. Because if you didn't have a legal process like that, and because we are a public entity, this is in order to protect against corruption so that we aren't awarding a contract to Dan's brother. That public funds go to the best applicant, not for any other reason. So to that end, I would like to invite the Champions providers to tell us a bit about their program.
Yep. Oh, yeah, sorry, you have to make, I had it ready.
All right, can you hear me? I just put together some visuals. I have a team with me today. I'm Brian Gresser. I'm a partnership manager for Champions. Our parent company is KinderCare Learning. And I'll go through a little bit about what this is, but I'll let Storm introduce himself.
Hi, families. My name is Storm Mathias, area manager. I oversee a couple of schools in New Jersey and New York and the New York City Mets daycare.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lindsay Capitasso, also Champions area manager here in New Jersey and also overseeing New York programs.
And I want to start off by thanking Highland Park, the board, everybody in the community, the parents, everybody watching. We're very excited to move forward and to work with you guys. As a company, we have a family of brands. Am I goofing that up? Sorry. So KinderCare, you might have heard of KinderCare or seen KinderCare centers throughout the country. We have over 200,000 children that we're serving throughout the country. And then there's a Champions brand, which is the school brand. This is what we provide and bring to the school districts. And then we also have what's called Creme de la Creme. These are higher end learning centers throughout the country. I know there's one in Flemington. I drive by it all the time when I'm out on the road. So, and as a company, we also have some other products and things. We do before care programming. We do summer camps, if that's something in the future for the district. We also provide those. We have backup care. We have a work program too. So we go out to companies like Purdue, Dell, things like that, and they work along with us and we provide care for the companies. And then we also have game day. I see a Mets hat here. We provide the care for the Mets children. So when the Mets are playing games, the children of the players come to us. We provide care. I think Storm is the person who runs that. And then Lizzie, I think you do the Giants and Jets. So we have other organizations we work with as well. So we have in the last year, we're celebrating over 1,000 school districts throughout the country that we're working with. We're very excited about that. I heard we're up to 1,200 in going into this year. So I know we're moving in the right direction. And then if you haven't heard of us, we are throughout New Jersey. We do have a lot of sites here in Jersey. And what also sticks out to me is some of these sites have been with us for 20, 30 years throughout New Jersey. So we've been a fixture within the communities that you guys live in. And we want to be champions of your school. This is a true partnership. Even though you'll be working with Champions, it's still the program of the school district. We partner at every aspect of it. We will work along with you. We work along with the community. So you provide the space. We do take the lead. We go through all the licensing. We do the scheduling. We do basically pretty much everything. So turnkey means turnkey. We go through and help you along the process. We also help the community when it comes to tuitions and salaries. So we do provide subsidy. We do work with you to get parents who need some assistance to get their care provided for. And we provide every school that's going to be working with us $26,000 worth of materials along with the program. So that comes in a cart. We bring it to you in a white glove delivery, and we put all the material together. It's on wheels. So if we have to move around, we do move around as a program. So we're all set on that. So as I said, this is a partnership. Even though we do have a program, we have a curriculum that's accredited, that's nationally accredited. We do work along with you to customize the program to fit your needs, because even within one district, there might be two schools that have different needs. So we work along with you throughout the process. And then another thing that's important is we're going to recruit from within the community. We're going to hire people from within this community. So we have a whole department that does that. We have people that we're going to be looking for to fill some of the positions of site director and things like that. We take and develop and train those people, and we want them to stay with us for a long time. We don't want a lot of turnover. So. And then I'm going to turn over to Lindsay. We talk a little bit about we're champions of your students and what a day might look like for before and after care.
I'm happy to jump in, and Storm, if you want to hop in at any point, you're more than welcome to. This is giving an example of what before and after care looks like. So just to share out for the people that are in the back, for before school, we are here at 7 a.m. and we do a scheduled activity. So we have curriculum that is 2-week-long themed units that we go by. So we do themed activities, projects, crafts relating to that. And then we have interest areas. So like Brian shared about our carts, we have all of these different materials that we bring in. So there are a ton of things that your children can do and they can choose from regarding STEM, science, math and construction, puzzles and games. We do homework help for our older children that do need assistance. And also they have option for free play. So that is something that we know some children are not the same. And right, some want to do homework or those crafts, or others would just like to read a book in the quiet area, and they're more than welcome to do so. And we'll support them in that. And then after school, when the school bell rings, the children will be brought down to us on site. And then we will mirror kind of what we did in the morning, but doing a themed unit activity, a group circle time, homework help, and we do clubs. So different things that the kids are interested in, and we do that throughout the week. And it could be a singing club, a chess club, dance club. We've had different things that the kids, again, vote on, and our teachers will provide the materials and different activities for them to do weekly. And also outdoor and gross motor. That's something that's very important to us, making sure that we're doing that every single day, weather permitting, of course, of being inside and figuring out we have a ton of different things that we can do. And again, with the curriculum, we also have one of my favorite books, the Purple Book, for all the outdoor activities that you guys, our teachers can have, and different themed activities, whether we are inside, say it's something that we weren't able to get outside for the playground, they give us about 500 different ideas of what we can do inside to do a gross motor activity. And something that I'm just really proud of is just being, again, a true partner within the district. So making sure we're extending the school day. That is something that I'm very passionate about, and I know Mr. Storm is as well. We are constantly in communication with the district, with the school teachers, and making sure we're doing everything that we can for the kids that come to our program. So we are the start of their day and the end of their day. So making sure that we're doing everything we can to be in partnership with not only the families, but the school to make sure that they have the best experience. I'll hand it over to Storm.
So we talk about the champions and our families and our commitment to the parents. I will share this with you all. I love the ideology of this is a one size fits one approach, not a one size fits all. What I mean by that is we have kiddos that are going to come in and they really want to be that artist or that architect, or they may want to get into STEM, right? And we tailor it to that. And then as Lindsay had shared, just helping out the parents. I'm a parent of 3. I have 2 kids in college, and I have a 12-year-old. They'll be 13 on Sunday. So we get it. We're all parents. We want the best for our kiddos. I've been in this journey for a long time, families. Love what I do. I do what I love, and we're looking for that passionate teacher. And I just want to mention, we are accredited. Now, I proudly wear this shirt because we are an accredited program. It takes a long time to get accredited. I'll pass it over to Liz.
Sure. For health and safety. So just going into, again, following all protocols, we are New Jersey state licensed. So we follow every protocol that we should be for within a childcare setting. Of course, making sure that we're in ratio. So that means to have enough teachers to staff and abiding by that. Making sure all of our doors obviously are locked. We're IDing every single family that walks in to our buildings, making sure we are only releasing children to the families that you put on your family account. So there is just on another side for families, when you enroll, everything is done online on discoverchampions.com. And you will fill out who we can be releasing your child to. So it couldn't just be anybody. We physically will only allow the people that are on that list to be dismissed too. So making sure you're following that. We are first aid, CPR certified, AED certified. We follow all precautions regarding any allergies or any need that we should be aware of within our program. That is also filled out online. So we're making sure that we have that prior, and we share this information with the school, with our parents, with the staffing, and making sure that we are trained for every child that walks into our program. Yep. And just to share, so everything is done on our online portals, which is really wonderful. So that is where you can go on, you can change your schedules. And something that's really great that I always love to talk about is you can change your schedule weekly. So you're only billed for the days that you need us. So you can go in, say you only need us for 3 days throughout the whole year. You can only get charged for the 3 days that you need us. It is not a set fee. You can go on and schedule for the full school year, or you can go on and schedule week by week. That is up to you. And we do just ask that you choose your schedule by Wednesday night so we can make sure the next week we are staffed appropriately and have all materials that we need on site for your child.
So the prices that were in the RFP for the community and the parents, based upon 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, whatever you have your child in, that we were negotiated through the process that went through that. So, and again, this can all be done online, and then there are discounts for district employees, multiple families, military, free and reduced lunch, and then multiple programs as well. So we're just excited to be here and excited to be talking to you guys and being a part of the community.
Thank you. All right, so at this point, what we'll do is if you just hold on to the microphone, you all can have a seat, but my recommendation is just hold on to the microphone just in case somebody has a question and we need clarification. Maybe we'll do it that way. So we'll open it up to board members. If you have specific questions or comments, we'll open to discussion. Good.
Yeah, I thought also this might be a good time for Nikki and Sarah, who were part of the committee, who chose champions, to talk a little bit about that process and how they came to that decision.
Sure. I'm Nikki, would you like to go first, or should I
Yeah,
do
I
the
can go
voice?
first.
Okay,
Yeah,
great. Okay.
Okay, so I did have to write it down so I remember everything. But I just want to acknowledge that I was actually not initially in favor of outsourcing before and after care. Generally, I'm cautious about privatization, outsourcing. I'm usually 100% against it. I had a lot of reservations to start. However, over the past 2 years, it's become clear to me that despite our best efforts, the in-house model has not been sustainable or effective in meeting the needs of our community. So given those circumstances, I now believe that outsourcing presents a practical and reliable solution to ensure high quality, affordable care for all families. That said, I always want to emphasize this is not necessarily like permanent. If the year goes by and we find it doesn't work for us, we can adjust accordingly. So because of my initial reservations, that's why I chose to be on the committee, so I could better understand the options and be a part of the decision-making process. So I got some valuable insight. But there are 4 main concerns that I have for before and after care programs, and that's accessibility, and affordability, especially for families that are experiencing economic hardship. Number 2 is inclusion, particularly for students with special needs, IEPs, 405, 504, sorry, et cetera. Even children with who need EpiPens, insulin. And the staff training is another thing that is important to me to ensure quality care and preparedness. So as far as the affordability and accessibility, Um, let's see what I have here. So the program is just a little bit higher than what we're charging before, but it's structured more like an enrichment program rather than like a daycare or babysitting type of program. They offer a combined discount for families, which is, I think, more fair than only discounting the second child, as some other places have done. And they also accept the state subsidies, and they even have a specialist that actually specializes in helping families navigate the process, which is not always easy. And importantly, students can start attending before the subsidy is fully processed. I also like that they have the financial assistance and scholarships for families who don't qualify for subsidies or need help covering the costs. As far as inclusion and support for special needs, that's another thing that I really care about. They have experience working with children with IEPs, 504s, and they even mentioned that they have experience with those who elope. So we do a few of those children. And it seems that they have a dedicated inclusion team, which is something I haven't really seen in a lot of other programs. And for health and safety, another thing that's top of the list, another thing that I did like was that they do require everybody, all their staff, to be trained in CPR, AED, first aid, but also EpiPens and insulin, which are emergency situations. And if the children don't have access to that right away, or somebody who knows how to do it, it can be a very dire situation. And they had a comprehensive emergency response plan, which, gave me peace of mind. Just a few more things. So the other thing I went over was the staff and training and quality. There's ongoing staff training and safety education, childcare, not just the one-time onboarding. They have a strong employee retention rate, which I saw as a sign of a stable and committed team. They don't rely on screens, which was a big deal, unless it's Chromebooks for homework. And they do have homework support built into the program. And then they also offered early dismissal care to help working families. They have drop-ins if you have an emergency situation. They agreed to continue the middle school after school program on site. So that was another important thing for us. And they seem to be efficient and organized in licensing and have a solid transition plan to be ready by September. And I really appreciated their approach to communication with regular newsletters, family events, reports, updates, photos shared with families who give permission. And the transparency, I think, helps build connection and trust. And I could see that the director took her job seriously and deeply involved in the program. And they also expressed a strong desire to become part of our school community, like joining the PTO or attending board meetings and being visible and active in our school. So those were all I took extensive notes. So all the things, all the things that stood out to me that I found to be very important. Awesome.
Great. Is now the time for the voice from the sky?
Go for it.
Voice from the sky, Sarah Pixley. Yeah, thanks for giving us the opportunity to just, the process I found, and especially the inclusion of a parent who would be utilizing the services, a really good one, given that we had a short amount of time, given kind of the urgency of the situation. And just a kind of a reminder to folks, when I think as a parent a couple years ago, not being able to certify, say, whether there was CPR trained person in the room. And these are the kind of things we're really looking forward to as we took it in-house over the past year, and learned that, there's a reason why of the 546 districts, very, very few actually do this in-house. We can't carry that negative balance. And, so for when you think about what our options are, really excited actually about the ones who are expert in this, who are a business. We are not, we're in a different business, not one that, can carry kind of a negative balance like that. So it's really important, to balance, what our choices are versus, the immediate need to actually find a company that we felt could do this and do it with confidence, with a great programming that we heard about. So just kind of an overview of going into the room and going through the RFPs and really thinking about the parents and what they've been telling us over the past year. things like programming, things like affordability, things like no screens, safety, being able to guarantee the certifications and training. Those are all very top of mind. Similar to Nikki, I think we had the same kind of guiding principles. Couple of things I'll just say. I want to reiterate that just actually make me very excited about being able to have folks have access to this kind of service that just didn't exist before. So, the experienced area coordinator that's very hands-on, just the one to note in our particular region, has one of the highest retention rates for the staff across the country. So I think that's very notable to tell you a little bit about particularly our local region and what that would be like. The development appropriate curriculum that is evidence-based, I think is an important piece. And, I can't understate that, the inclusion team, things like subsidy support, things like offering assistance for those while they're in the sub. These are all things that, this is why it's really hard for us to do, right? We don't have a whole inclusion team that could support this. We don't have a licensing team that would support getting this up and running. They've been doing this for years, as they pointed out, some 20 to 30 years so within the state of New Jersey. So they can really help us navigate this to get a program up and running that meets all of our standards. And it's not just in my eyes, I didn't walk away from the process saying, oh, this is kind of, I really walked away saying sorry, hold on, I've got children back. Saying this is the best situation for us. I'm actually, again, really excited. I think the other things too, when you think about what stood out was, when we have half-day school, you can actually have extended and during break periods, you can get care. And the flexibility, having 24 hours, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, where you could drop in the next day, just have to give notice because they take their ratios very seriously. So they're able to kind of staff that given the demand. And being able to do it on a week-by-week basis is really an asset to families. And I think those who need the flexibility and need the support, the communication plans, I was really impressed by the newsletters. And, it was kind of an interesting when we asked the question of, well, what if for me as someone who thinks about how are you sticking to the program? It's like, how do you make sure we're sticking to the program? And it wasn't even a question really, which is that's just, the expectation is there's communication with the parents. They've got the methods and the modes already in place to make sure that's happening continuously, which I think is really important. The activities that they're doing, you've got transparency into it, and you're getting continuous newsletters to confirm and kind of get excited and journey through this with the kids. So I'm wondering if let me see my notes, if there's any other, all of those things just make me really excited about the fact where we're landing today, and the ability to offer this as a service to more families. And I would expect something like this, because it does offer more flexibility and tighter programming, quite frankly. I'd imagine, we'll be able to see this expand potentially. So that'll be something to watch. And also, as Nikki said, we can evaluate this. They've got polling for how it's going that feeds back, and we'll have access to that information so we can kind of, evaluate as we go through the first year. The other thing, I think just to note is where others didn't quite meet the bar, it really were the things that we heard from the parents, which is, we don't want students just, sitting in front of a screen. That was a big no-no. And, really importantly, we need to guarantee, the safety of the children and just the robust training and certification. It wasn't just about making sure that, medication could be delivered when we needed it. It was also, to me, it represents a commitment to the staff. The training helps you not just in your current role, but also helps you in your future career as well, because you've got the certification that you can take with you where you go. So those are the many things I think that, I would share, and, happy to discuss more, but, that's my two. Hopefully it's helpful.
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you, Nikki. I just want to add for context. So to explain the process, so like Ann said, we received 5 proposals. The committee received those proposals in advance of a meeting. We had two meetings, but our first meeting, during that meeting, we review all those proposals and then we score them. We have conversations, and there were some things that, you know, maybe we just needed clarification or had questions on. So we kind of noted those things in some comment areas on the score sheet. Then what we did was we gave them to the business administrator, and she tallied up our scores. And then the top two proposals, we invited them back for a second meeting. During that second meeting, we were able to ask some clarifying questions, because sometimes a proposal in a paper doesn't give you everything. So we were able to ask some clarifying questions and just kind of dig a little bit deeper, and really, obviously, to meet the people that are going to be, you know, running our program and staffing our program, and making sure that they're a really good fit for our community. And again, like I said, the clarifying questions. So that was two companies. And then afterward, I think, as you heard from both Nikki and Sarah, we were blown away by Champions. After that process, then shortly after, we did our due diligence as well and contacted some local school districts just to get some feedback as well. So I contacted a couple of superintendents, and I know Denise contacted a couple of business administrators, and we got really glowing, raving feedback for districts like South Brunswick that was in a very similar position as ours, where due to financial concerns, they could not maintain their program in-house as well. Did the same process, and Champions was successful, and they had only glowing things to say about everything, soup to nuts. And they said that their staff are paid very well, and actually beyond what they could pay them, just because they said access to more resources. In fact, one of the things that blew me out of the water was when we talked about the middle school program and potentially the numbers not being high enough to potentially make it profitable. They didn't care about that. That if it was what the community wanted, they would do it, and they would take a loss because it was something that was important to us. And that's something that we can't sustain, but that they could. And that was something that was really important. So I wanted to highlight that as well as part of the process. Ethan?
Sure. I'm sorry, Anne, were you going to say something, or Dr. Suska? I do some remarks. So, you know, I'm always grateful for the work that my fellow board members put in, especially this case. You know, Nikki and Sarah, and I think Allison as well, were on the committee and have clearly just taken it so seriously. And I'm very grateful for that. So this is a really important vote. So I just wanted to take a second and explain how I've been thinking about things. You know, first, I want to acknowledge there are many people in our community who feel very strongly that working with an outside organization to run aftercare, especially the organization we're looking at tonight, would be a mistake. Highland Park, it's a small town. We have about 15,000 people in the whole town, but we have our own public works. We have our own fire department. We have our own police. We have our own town government. We have our own school district. And our school district has traditionally run its own aftercare program. And that's the way we like things in Highland Park. It's what we're used to. We like to have our hands in stuff. We like to have control over what affects our lives. It's one of the reasons why we stay here. And tonight, there are many parents who are going to speak because they love the way aftercare has been run, at least much of the time. And there are also many staff who have relationships with these families that run back many years. So everyone in that position really, really wants things to stay the way they have always been. A lot of me wants that too. But I want to say, with all the sympathy I can express, that as Sarah and Nikki and Dr. Suska have noted, the status quo is just impossible to maintain. We are a small town. We're a small district. We just don't have the resources in funding or staff time to continue to run our own program. If we tried, we would inevitably deepen the deficit we're already in. That would have drastic knock-on effects on other core programs and services. We cannot let that happen. We have to find a way to make our aftercare financially sustainable. So the proposal before us tonight would do that. But one argument we're going to hear a lot of tonight, I think is quite possible, that the Champions program, which is a division of a very large company, KinderCare, would do a bad job running aftercare and might even expose our children to unacceptable risks. This is a serious concern. but I do not believe this is the case. The board administration put this contract out for bid. As Dr. Suska has mentioned, we received 5 proposals. Of these 5, Champions was the best. The written proposal, which I've looked at, and answers to our questions, which I've seen as well, describe a program that aligns beautifully with our district's priorities in social emotional learning, academic enrichment, and diversity and inclusion. The committee reviewing the proposals spoke at length with the regional area managers who will be standing up the program in Highland Park, and found them, as I did just now, to be deeply impressive, confidence-inspiring people. Crucially, for the relationships that mean so much to Highland Park parents and staff, Champions will prioritize, and we have this in writing, hiring existing staff, and will ensure that they receive up-to-date training and can perform tasks to assist students with special health needs. Champions has a long track record of serving schools in New Jersey. According to the prospectus, they run programs in 77 schools in 19 districts. That is a lot. And discussions with parents and staff in these districts, we have heard many good things. Now, no organization is perfect, and KinderCare is a big one. And among the over 2,700 programs that KinderCare runs nationwide, there have been some distressing and in some cases disturbing incidents. There have even been some substantiated incidents of neglect and violations of procedure at KinderCare programs in New Jersey. I want to be clear, and I know everyone else feels this way. Shortcomings of this kind will not be tolerated in Highland Park. I believe Champions has the potential to be an outstanding provider, and the risk of serious problems is low. But implementation is everything. For this reason, I think it is critical that if Champions receives this contract, the administration should commit to having management staff come before BOE committees and the full board regularly to report on progress, and so that we can raise questions and concerns. This is how it was done when we were running it in-house. It's how it should be done now that we're outsourcing. I have conveyed this conviction to the board chair, and I have confidence that board oversight of the privately run AFC program will be robust. We will not be handing over the keys and wiping our hands. We will do our job, and we will make absolutely sure that Champions does theirs. The contract we're voting on tonight is a 1-year contract with an option for the district to renew. And when and if we renew it, it can be for any period of time between 1 and 4 years. If Champions does not live up to our high expectations, we will not hesitate to look elsewhere. I want to end by saying again that I know this is a hard issue for many people. I respect there are different points of view. People feel strongly, and it's reasonable to have these different points of view. I believe that approving Champions to be our provider is the best course of action, and I hope that Champions will make the most of this opportunity to earn the confidence of the community in the coming years. Thank you.
Should I go?
Go for it.
All right. I want to start by thanking the committee for doing an enormous amount of work in a short amount of time, and thank the administrators too for everything they've done in processing this. Because the financial losses were caught late, this has actually put us in a really tight timeline. I know there have been requests for delaying the vote. Delaying the vote would basically mean we can't have an after-school program ready for the fall. So I think that's at least this one, right? So if we push this off a month, and they have to go through licensing, hiring people, training, all these kind of things. So I think that's important to know. And we would still be voting on whether or not we would approve Champions since they won the RFP process. So all that's to say is we are in a tight window. We have not, for board members who are not on the committee, we've had very little time to read this, but we've been, I think, very engaged in reviewing this since we did get the information. But that is not due to the committee or the RFP process. I will say, I think the RFP process was much better than it was when we went through this previously. There was a requirement around finances and how that was going to be specified. There was first right of refusal for staff. Those were critical things for the board. And those are part of the proposal. Having said that, I think this is the program we have heard the most complaints about on the board and over the last year. I mean, compared to school start time, everything we've heard about after school program with complaints about the in-district run program more than anything. That's sometimes about communication with parents. There have been not necessarily complaints from parents, but there has been issues clearly with finances and how we're financing it. There have been major questions about programming or lack thereof. And so I don't want to kind of glorify necessarily. And that's also not to say that we actually have some outstanding staff in the program who I think build really strong relationships with kids. And so, but I don't want to idealize kind of what we have as we also look at another option. As I say that, I have some major concerns. One of them, which Dr. Seska just spoke to, is around labor issues. As someone who's a building rep in my own union, there have been issues of wage theft with kinder care, pay issues. Typically, caring industries pay very low. And when those are in more corporate environments, they tend to be lower than in public schools. So I have some major concerns based on the history of kinder care around some of the labor things. I think this would be a partnership with while we would have a more local manager, this is really a partnership with a large corporation and privatizing an after-school program. There are options for outsourcing it, although the proposal we got didn't have a nonprofit option and so forth. So given the RFP and who applied, it was a question of whether or not we're privatizing. I will say that I've looked across all the programs that applied and put a proposal in, and generally across them, they are rated pretty low by their workers. And that's a concern. And there's all sorts of concerns from workers around working conditions, pay, so forth. None of them are much better or worse than each other, but it's a concern of mine for how the position we're putting staff in, even as staff has a first right of refusal. The question is, what are they refusing? What level of pay are they refusing? What quality of work are they refusing if they do or opting into as they make that choice? Yeah. So I have some major concerns, and that's in addition to some of the concerns that Ethan mentioned about some of the cases, both in New Jersey and nationwide, about treatment of children. And so I will say, I think this is probably the hardest vote I've had on the board. And I think there's a lot of different facets to weigh. I don't think it's an easy decision either way. There are a lot of complaints about our in-house current program. I think there are certainly some issues with, whether or not we go with champions or not. I think the piece that I think if we do approve this proposal, I think the major issue for me is what Ethan mentioned, which is how are we going to assess and evaluate this, given this is a year contract, and how do we do that in a timeline that allows for staff feedback, parent feedback, child feedback, so that we make this decision. If we have to make this decision again, we have time where we feel like the public had time to review this, had time to process it, because at this point, given our current timeline, that was really a matter of days. And so I think if this proposal does get approved, I think that will be a critical issue given the one-year contract, and making sure that if this happens, that parents, children, and staff are actually feel like it's successful, it's meeting our needs. If it's not, do we adjust? Do we look for another vendor? So yeah, so I think it's a really complex issue. I know we've gotten a lot of emails and heard a lot from the public because this is something that they're very concerned about, something I'm very concerned about. And I think it's there's a lot of different issues at play. And I think because of the timeline, that has also made people not have enough time to really process and review this, but also not be able to ask questions, get answers in what feels like a pretty pressurized and short window. So I will end with that.
I have a few questions. So this is a question for the champions team. I know that you said that you would work, that you have someone to work on subsidies and are working to get families enrolled in the subsidy program. Part of the problem that we encountered running our own in-house licensed after-school program was that not a huge number of our families qualified for not a huge number of our free and reduced lunch families who qualified for a lower rate under our previous program, they didn't qualify for the subsidy. And there were a lot of different reasons for that. Some of our families are undocumented. Some of our families don't work during the time period where aftercare was open. Do you have any, what can you guys do in order to help families who are economically challenged, but who may not qualify for the state subsidy?
Sure, I'm happy to help and answer. I also oversee different districts where I'm mainly subsidized. A lot of my families, I would say 80% of my families receive some sort of assistance, whether it's free and reduced or subsidy. So working with those families, we do have a specialist that works directly with us that lives here in New Jersey. So not even just our whole billing team that we have across the country. We have a specialist here that works on just the applications in New Jersey and physically goes to all the agencies to support. And we do work very closely with them. And I did share in the proposal, we also supply computers so they can come to us. We can help them physically do the applications, print out whatever it may be, make copies for the families of whatever they need to submit and support them. And then when it comes to if they don't qualify, that is something that we can chat with our team about, whether some families we're in the same boat that they don't qualify, but then they have the free and reduced, whatever that is within the contract. It is different district by district. It could be a higher percentage of, say, a 40% discount or a 30% discount. So that is something that we can work with to make sure those numbers are correct. And again, the scholarships, whatever it may be, that is something that we can work directly with the family to make sure, because that is a goal for us, is making sure that every child has a seat at the table in Champions.
Yeah, I just want to share for families out there as well. We also have a Care Select program that we work with hundreds of organizations. So you can maybe work at McDonald's or work at a hospital, and we partner with that hospital or that location, and we give you a discount because you're in partnership with that organization as well.
Could I say something? Yeah. Oh, Allison, go ahead.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm sorry. I'm not able to turn my video on, but can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. I had just wanted to add on to, the comments before. I share all the same concerns that Ethan and Dan shared. And I also share a lot of the positive perceptions that we got from the program that Sarah and Nikki shared, because I was able to be on that committee. I wanted to give some background in terms of my thinking, which was I was not on board with outsourcing in 2023. And I don't think a lot of people know that, because I wasn't really at the board meetings during that time because my father had passed away. So for me, building a local program was really important. And I was really proud that we were able to do that. And so it was very hard for me to hear that we were not going to be able to sustain this. So I went into our evaluation knowing that, you know, I was disappointed with not being able to keep things as they are, even though I knew there was room for improvement. But I was so excited to find a proposal that I felt met the needs of our families. And so, you know, I'm not going to reiterate what Sarah and Nikki said, but I did want to share that I was, you know, it was a bit of a turn for me as well. And I'm really excited about the programming that they're going to be able to offer.
Thank you. And then, Anne, did you have a couple other questions or?
Yeah, but I, so around the issue of safety, you know, we did receive some troubling concerns around KinderCare. And I know that the administration, when doing due diligence, you know, also looks into the license of Champions. And just, I want to ask, did you pull DCF reports for Champions license?
There's a lot on there, so I didn't get to all of them, I will be honest. But if you go to the DCF website and look and you click through all of them, so all of the schools, by the way, that they said they have partnerships with, we're all on there, but it's by school. So each license is by school, so you can't do it by district. That's why there's a lot of them. And apparently some of your larger schools have districts have multiple schools. But what I found overall was that there are no DCF complaints. The very few that I found that are on there was one that said a staff yelled at a child. But that was rectified. And another one was that I believe at the Chesterfield location to make sure that at multiple people were, I guess something about some staff trained for first aid and CPR, but then that was rectified very quickly after, and it makes a note of that. So that was really what I could find. And I'm not sure if you've been to our program at all, but sometimes our staff yells at our children as well. So I took that one with a grain of salt, but I will say we brought that up as a concern in the committee, in the interview process, and they talked a lot about a very responsive approach that was restorative in language and very very nurtured heart, very restorative in how they approach and talk to kids, how they train their staff to do it. So I can't reiterate that enough about the rigorous training that staff would have to go through. So I felt confident in looking at it that the very few complaints that were on there were rectified really quickly according to the notes on there, which was awesome. So if there are issues, it seems like Champions is very responsive to rectify them right away. And that it didn't seem troubling like the stuff that came out of some of the research on the larger parent company of KinderCare.
And then I did have another question because we are on this crunch timeline, and this really is due to the fact that we discovered the financial situation in April. And so I did want to ask Dr. Suska, could you reiterate what it means when the auditor gives a recommendation and what ignoring that recommendation could mean?
Sure. So if an auditor, so first of all, an enterprise fund, so a childcare program is not a requirement by the state of New Jersey. It's an optional, and by the way, an amazing program that we should offer our families. So it has to be fully self-sustaining. So that means it has to be a business model, meaning it cannot go in the negative. It has to be self-sustaining and profitable, either one of those two things. And what we found was the fact that it wasn't was alarming. So we contacted the auditors right away, because if it's not, we asked, well, what can we do? Because we weren't getting that windfall. We were relying on the subsidy because, you know, about 60+% of our families that participate in our program qualify for us for free and reduced lunch by state standards. So we were expecting a large percentage of our families to qualify for that subsidy. And for a myriad of reasons, they weren't. So we weren't getting that windfall that we were expecting, but we are licensed for the subsidy. So they're nodding their heads that, you know, the money that you have to put out is not the money we were getting back. So when we contacted the auditors to say, what do we do? Because we're in this pickle, We're able to use any of the revenue that we had generated to offset that cost, but it wasn't enough because it was pretty dire. So we're going to have to finagle and wiggle things around to come up with the money out of our operating budget to sustain that cost. That will come with an audit recommendation if we don't outsource it. Like Ann said, the audit recommendation negatively impacts the district. And then what happens is that you have to get out of that audit recommendation. So you have to work your tail off to show them not only are you out of it, but that you have a model that can sustain being out of it for the long haul. So it's not just I increase rates next year and now we're out of it. It's way more than that. And leading into a potential referendum in 2030, that, for lack of a better way of explaining it, other than it will negatively impact like our credit rating. So we work with Phoenix Financial Advisors. They are essentially a company that monitors our spending habits to make sure that we are in good financial shape. That way, if we need to borrow money or we need to bond or we have an issue and we have to go to the state, it's showing we are a financially sound, feasible institution and we need this money. So I'm sure that for everybody that's been paying attention over the number of years, it's also a strategic plan goal. Our facilities have been in dire need of support. We're spending well over $2 million on an unforeseen repair at Bartle because our facilities have been neglected over the years. So what I don't want to do is put the district under my leadership in a situation where we won't be able to bond in a couple of years to fix some really dire issues that if we don't get fixed could be really problematic in the future. So a lot of what we do in these positions is not only think about our current needs, but I have to project and think for our future needs. So I was also skeptical because I wanted to make sure that we found a program that would fit the needs of our district and something that I could put my name behind as the superintendent of schools. And I'm confident with our process, with our decision making, but that we're also setting the district up for financial success with outsourcing as well. We won't get that recommendation, and that can keep us in financial good standing heading into the next couple of years where we're going to be looking at a bond in the future for a referendum.
Yeah, I think,
ahead,
Sarah from
Sarah.
the Sky, yeah, Sarah from the Sky speaking again. I think what's also helpful to, I think something that Dan really spoke nicely to about, being under the time pressure. So there's a lot of things we just have to navigate. And one of the pushes to kind of delay the vote, that the reality is that would mean, not having an before and after care program for the start of the school year. But I also, at least for, given the financial, issues and the auditor suggestions, and also, back to the old model and not having the safety and other kind of things in place. I mean, the only way you can really sustain a program like that it doesn't really meet the standards. And so to be clear, at least for me, in the way, I think about this, is it's not an option to not outsource it. And so, I think that's an important, we just don't have that. We are not a business that operates like that. And again, I think just so many other districts have put in the good fight and tried to do it, but it's just not really sustainable when you're an education institution and not a business, not in the business of running, a daycare center. So, or childcare center. So I think it's really important to just highlight that the choice is, at least in my eyes, is well, I think it's beyond just my eyes, right? With the recommendations and what puts us in a really strong position to support our families across the district is outsourcing it, and it is not an option to keep it in house. So I think it's more of a timeline where, if there's more questions and so on, to delay. But again, it would delay the actual programming, and and again, being part of the committee and having the questions and the reservations and going in with full confidence. It's whether we had, to just being, I think being part of that process, it was really helpful, as Allison kind of laid out, going in with some apprehension and then feeling good about the outcome.
I do have a question about our contract. So it's a 1-year renewable contract for over 5 years. Is that correct?
It's a 1-year contract, renewable for
4 years.
1 year each. Each year we would have to renew it.
Yeah.
Up
Okay.
to 5 years,
Up to 5 years.
you know,
Up to
so,
5 years and then the terms would
right,
renegotiate.
it's the same like our cafeteria contract with Pomptonian.
And so one of my concerns about, I mean, just in general, I have some grave concerns about outsourcing in general. I also have concerns about outsourcing to a, private equity owned for-profit organization. And that just went public, in the fall. And one of the things that can happen when corporate structure like that changes is there can be a move to cut services and raise rates. We've seen this in many other areas, in nursing homes and hospitals, dentist's office, across vets offices across the board. What kind of protections do we have on our, I understand we would have protections on staffing because there are legal requirements on ratios, for example.
Correct.
The same ratios that we had to follow when we were running our own program. What sort of protections do our families have on the rates?
So the proposal requested the rates for all 5 years. So KinderCare provided those rates, and I think they're at a $2 increment for each year. If you take an average year, each year, it's about 3%. Their proposal also indicated that it could be negotiable. So they shared a $50,000 minimum guarantee with a 14% revenue share, correct? However, if the district, we only expect $50,000. That's what we budgeted for. So if next year, if we only need revenue of 50,000, they in turn will take the additional projected revenue and keep costs down. So that's something that can be talked about with them as the contract goes forward. It's a discussion that we could have at our monthly meetings, looking at enrollment, looking at the revenue that's coming in. That's something that occurs typically in an outsourced contract.
And
I
then we,
don't know if you wanted me to speak to that. I'm sorry. I got that approved for you guys. I thought it was important because I read that. So it's not a normal practice for us. So we did have lower renewal rates for you guys. Of course, we know that we're being judged on our performance. I mean, we take pride in that. We talked about this at the interview. We grade ourselves through a company called Gallup. So Gallup's going to send a survey to your families on how we're doing, to your administration on how we're doing. We have to fill one out about ourselves and how we're doing and how we're getting paid and things like that. We've had the highest ratings in the last 6 years on that Gallup from not just us, from external people. So we take pride in that, but we also saw that that was important to you guys. We know there are some companies that come in with low rates and then they hit you in the following year, and we didn't want to do that to you. So.
and I'm sorry, when does that, when would we get the feedback from that?
Gallup?
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's when you know when it goes.
Yeah,
out.
so thank you for that, Chair. So and I'm glad someone had mentioned that. So every year in October, we'll go out to the families. And we will get the results within the next and ends in November, right before teacher conventions. So it's a crunch. We want honest feedback. I want honest feedback. We want honest feedback. And the 3 levels are the admin staff, our parents, and our staff. Like, we're getting feedback from all 3. It is an obligation for our site directors and us as area managers to meet with every single principal and say, this is transparency. This is what we're doing well. We're human. This is what things that we need to do better on, and how do we get there? So we don't have to wait a whole year to say, is Champions meeting their expectations? It's November where we get our information. Yeah.
And then we also incentivize with that. You the proposal asked for 50,000, I think, dollars per year for rent. So we put that potential of 14% based upon the number of students. So we're not just saying it's on you to get more students, it's on them to also. We want to get more parents involved. So there's an incentive on both sides for us to do better and better, because if we do better, you do better. And we want that. We want you guys to do better. So.
Thank
And
you.
If I could just explain about the $50,000, because I don't want there to be any misconceptions, because it did come up with the parent on the committee. For our auditors, we have historically charged a facilities rental fee to the program, the in-house program as well. Per the auditor's request, I need to have backup on how much is charged to the program. So there's an analysis of what classrooms are being used, what spaces are being used, their square footage, the hours of use, and it's a data-driven amount, the cost of our utilities to run those programs for those hours, the cost of the custodial to clean up after the program. So it was adjusted. It's historically been $35,000 each year, but the program has expanded to the middle school. It also has expanded the number of classrooms because we have an increase in enrollment. So that's where that $50,000 in our budget of projected revenue for facilities rental came in. Champions is guaranteeing a minimum of $50,000 to cover those costs.
And I'd like to reiterate a lot of what we heard here, which was that, you know, we have worked really hard on our in-house program. We did a lot of change over the last 2 years to try to make it better. We spent a lot of time on it, and it is one area where we continuously heard a lot of parent complaints about the program. However, one of the areas that we did not hear those complaints about was the expansion to the middle school program. And so I just want to clarify, in this program, we would continue the middle school program at the middle school.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, they don't have to walk anywhere. They don't have to go anywhere. Because actually in some of the proposals, either people said we can't do it because it's not profitable for us. That was something we heard from another company. And others were that they were going to walk the kids over and things like that. So we had several different options. So we were very, very pleased that and grateful that Champions wanted to keep it. The feedback that we got later on the year when we pulled more families at the middle school was the potential for expansion. So we do think that there's some some more and based on what Champions has to offer in terms of their programming, we think that it could actually be a really robust opportunity for our middle school families as well.
One point of clarification there too, which I really appreciated about that part of the dialogue was, that was one of the core things in our RFP that was important to us. And so, they were committed to that. And one part where the conversation was, if it ever gets down to the point where there's just a couple of students, it's not so much, let's reevaluate, because it's too hard or not profitable. It was like, that's not really probably a good experience for those 2 students. And that's going to be this bi-directional communication that we're continually having. So again, the conversation is always, I think about what's best for the students, and in that response, I thought that was kind of highlighted, and that is true. We think we're going to continually be evaluating, how it's going for the students and what their experience is. So I appreciate that response.
Does anyone have any further questions or comment? Okay.
Yep, good.
Okay. Well, then we're going to move on to the public comment section of our evening. The Highland Park Board of Education welcomes public participation and has reserved this time for your comments on items from this agenda only. Board Policy 0167 establishes and regulates the right of the public to participate in public meetings. We're going to go for anyone here in person who would like to give public comment. Please, we'll go first, and please go to the podium, give your name and address.
Write it on this thing.
Yes, please.
Andrew Zappo, 131 Johnson Street. So I have a question with regards to something that was stated again and again during the course of this comment, question and answers, is that there seems to be this message that this was a surprise. But if the budget is being looked at over the period of time for 2 years since the last vote, how could this be a surprise? That you're short and the subsidy didn't come in? Was that a surprise? Or were you relying on the subsidy to sustain a program you already knew wasn't sustainable to get us to this point because this is what was eventually wanted for the district as a whole? That's my first question. So you don't have to answer, it's fine. The second thing I wanted to do was take a minute to read from a book that's been really near and dear to my heart recently. Be alive to the notions of emergency is one. The biggest wallet pays for the most blinding lights. And finally, if members of the professions confuse their specific ethics with the emotions of the moment, this emergency, they can find themselves saying and doing things they might previously have thought unimaginable. I want you to take those words, think about them. And I'm standing here mostly to make sure there's a comment on behalf of the folks who worked in this program for year after year after year, some of whom are in this room. And I heard you guys saying, we want to take into account their voices about how we're doing. But as contractual, if they're employed by this company, are they going to even be allowed to do that with a free speech without fear of retribution by a private industry? Because that's generally not how they work. So I want you to keep that in mind. That's it. Thank you. Just going to write my address before I walk away.
Thank you. Is there anyone else for public comment?
Okay, well, I'm pretty sure that a lot of you guys know me from here, but if you don't, my name is John Turner, and I've had a very long relationship with the Highland Park public school systems. I was included as a 11-year-old in 1993 as an autistic student, and currently, I don't know how I ended up there, but I've been working at the after-school program for roughly around 16 years. I could say 17, but I'm not going to count that because that was a year where we couldn't. Anyway, I'm on the side of the people who are very, very uncomfortable with this decision of outsourcing. I understand the concerns that you have laid out, and I understand why you feel that this is a crucial issue. But unfortunately, I have several concerns about this as well. First of all, I agree that the after-school program, it's not perfect. It's not perfect. I agree there have been some moments where we haven't always been great, but I feel like that as far as progression is concerned, this last year that we've had it from 2024 to 2025, it was probably the best that we've had it in a while. And I was overall quite pleased with it. And so that's why I was really, really shocked and, almost pretty upset by this decision to outsource it, because what worries me are my colleagues and my bosses, Colin and Jackie. I mean, I'm very concerned for both of them because they both have worked really hard to help improve things at Bartle School. I mean, if it wasn't for Colin, I don't think I would have improved myself as a worker. And so I really don't know how to take any of this, to be honest. I personally am not very comfortable with this outsourcing decision. And 2 years ago, I argued that after-school program needs to stay in-house. And unfortunately, I still have to stand by that because this is almost like childcare all over again, where I got where we got shady answers about how to deal with specific kids, like those who have diabetes and LGBTQ kids, etc. And I'm not sure if I'm totally sold on this right here either. So ultimately, I truly am very, very reluctant and I'm very hesitant about going through with this. Now, of course, if my words don't make any sense to you, and if your minds have already been made up, just know that I do have some concerns about this, and I hope I don't ruffle anybody's feathers around here. But I've been very proud to be part of this after-school program for quite a long time now, and to lose it would be absolutely unimaginable, either through outsourcing or through not having it at all. But either way, this is something that I really have to call into question, because the parents and their staff members have relied on this program for a long time now. I've been at that program when I was in 1994, when I was a fourth grader. It's been a good service for 35 years. I just don't understand why we should even throw it away, even if the option is unsustainable. I'm asking if there's maybe another solution that we can come up with so that we don't head into what I feel could be a potential mistake. But I do respect everyone involved here. I'm just speaking on behalf of how I personally feel about this, and I hope you guys take my concerns into consideration, because, well, I'm very worried, not only for my bosses, but for my colleagues and for my relationships that I've established with the families and the kids over the years. I would hate for any of that to go to waste. So, thank you for hearing me out. And I hope a better decision can be reached.
Thank you, John. Is there anyone else in person who would like to speak? Do we have anyone online? No.
How many hands raised? 3. All right, just say their name out loud so we can call on them. D? D-E-E. All right, D, you can speak.
Please state your full name for the record, Dee.
You may have to unmute yourself.
Okay.
So, well, yeah, we'll come back to D. Okay, Elizabeth?
Hi, sorry, I'm in the middle of traveling. So just give me 1 second. Sorry. Hey, sweetie, just head inside. I'll be in a second. So my name is Buffy Wild Greenberg, 60 North 7th Avenue, Highland Park. So, I say this in the, spirit that John shared his comments. Oh, no, honey, I'm talking to the board. And so, I would just like to say, like, this is right out of the privatization handbook, right? There's a crisis. No one really takes accountability for how that crisis was created. And then we're told, if you don't vote yes on this, if you don't do something that you are uncomfortable with, that violates your principles, then we are going to lose this essential service. I know ASP is essential. I've used it myself as a single parent and working full time since my son was in kindergarten and he's now going into 7th grade. The fact is you have to question the person who's giving you that message. That is how privatization always works. And we do not make a bad decision like contracting with a company like KinderCare because the administration mismanaged a program and has been trying to privatize it for years. The old program was financially sustainable. The administration upended it. And now we're in a situation where, as Andrew said, if there were financial troubles, there is no reason why we should be handling them in July. They should have been realized much earlier. And that is not a justification for contracting with a group like KinderCare. I just want to say on KinderCare, I mean, I don't know where to begin. I know for a fact that no one on that board sent their kids to KinderCare. I know I didn't send my kid to KinderCare because every time I Googled KinderCare, all I saw were lawsuits about them not, them discriminating against kids with type 1 diabetes. That was my first association. When I saw that that's who we were going to contract with, I did a little research. Last night, I spent a few hours on the DCF website and I read every substantiated complaint against them in New Jersey. There were so many. Most of them were about having improper teacher-child ratios. That was the majority of them. But a significant number were physical abuse that were substantiated against very, very young children, including a child who was young enough to have his diaper changed on a changing table. And I'm asking this genuinely to the board, because when people are rushed into making a decision, it is very easy to miss things. It happens to all of us. And so I'm genuinely asking if my email this morning highlighting just the worst substantiated complaints, if that was the first time you all had reviewed the DCF substantiated complaints against KinderCare facilities in New Jersey. The second thing I want to ask is if my email was the first time you learned about the $500,000 fine that they were fined by Massachusetts for serious labor violations. Because again, if you've got a gun to your head and someone is saying, if you don't vote yes, we won't have a program and all of these working families are going to be screwed, it's really easy to not look critically at things. What we're hearing from KinderCare is a sales pitch. It doesn't include the really horrifying stories of abuse. It doesn't include the fact that their own investors are investigating them for misleading them. This is not a reputable company. This is a corporation. It prioritizes profits over care. We see this in the private prison industry. We see this wherever there's privatization. So I'm asking genuinely, and if you don't want to answer publicly, that's fine, but I'm asking genuinely if my emails were the first time that you saw those reports, those substantiated reports of abuse at the New Jersey KinderCare facilities, and if my email was the first time you were aware of the over $500,000 fine for Massachusetts. I know other people want to talk, and I'll end my comments there. I guess the one last thing I'll say is that all of you are talking as if you don't have a choice. You do have a choice. And I would, instead of saying I don't have a choice, I'd really question the person who's telling you that you don't have a choice. Because that's a problem. That's not how we want to make decisions. And if you're being told you don't have a choice, that's the problem. The problem is the crisis that was created, right? Address that crisis. Don't make a bad decision because, someone's saying, well, if you don't do this, something worse is going to happen. That shows there was mismanagement for us to get to this point. And now I'm done.
Thank you, Buffy.
Rob, go ahead.
Yes, I'm Rob Scott at 25 South 2nd Avenue, Apartment 1. And let me just say, I'd like to amplify what my friend Buffy just said. Y'all do have a choice, right? And I think exercising that choice now in 2025, living in the world we're living in now, is more important than ever. So to the board, y'all don't need to vote the same way. You can vote your conscience. It doesn't have to be a 9-0 vote. And I've been in many board meetings and I've seen it happen over and over again. Y'all made the decision in advance or don't feel like you can vote against your colleagues. You have to work on the committees. But it is okay to vote your conscience, and not everyone has to vote the same way. And if there's a vote that's 5-4, that's going to be okay for our community, and it's actually healthy and it's democratic. The program pitched by the KinderCare folks with all the slick salesmanship is all the stuff we can do in district. It just takes prior proper planning, and the district can hire local, can support a chess club, and so on. The district can do all of that, and we pay the superintendent to do that prior proper planning. And what we see is instead of getting prior proper planning, we get late notice of an unexpected financial crisis from a superintendent who tried to outsource the program a couple years ago. That says to me, the superintendent doesn't want the headache and just doesn't want the program. So what it says to me is that maybe the response should be to look seriously at how the financial crisis suddenly appeared in April, that's something the board should do as oversight. And you can vote for that kind of oversight, for a review of the superintendent. So here are 3 reasons to vote no against this proposal. First, there's ample evidence that KinderCare is unsafe. Okay, my friend Buffy Weil-Greenberg, who just spoke, she's an investigative journalist and has provided the board with ample evidence to this effect. This includes the substantiated complaints to the New Jersey Department of Family Services, dragging children by the foot or arm, screaming at children. Yet Superintendent Suska wrote to me, I want to emphasize that the district conducted a thorough review of the organizations that submitted proposals. This included evaluated their compliance history, staff, qualifications, student safety protocols, and overall performance in comparable districts. Any organization under serious or sustained scrutiny would not be considered unless we are confident in their ability to meet our expectations for quality, equity, and care. Given the evidence that's been provided to the board, to the contrary, I fear either Superintendent Suska has not been completely honest, although she did admit in this meeting she hasn't reviewed all the champions' complaints because it's hard, because you have to do it by individual school. Or this is another case like the very egregious mistake in violent incident reporting that led to our middle school being named one of the most violent middle schools in New Jersey. Wow, was that fun on Facebook. If there is a Highland Fling reporter here, this may be another opportunity for a big scoop. The rationale here is always to save money, and the scheme is privatization. That game is getting so old. Corporations profit, quality declines, jobs become worse, and workers are exploited. Privatization is used to break unions or prevent them from starting, exploit workers, and actively create more poor people. And I give our board credit. You all know this. I know you all know this, and I think you are against it. So voting no rejects that game. And again, there is evidence that the way KinderCare profits is by exploiting their staff. Exhibit A, KinderCare is advertising positions in New Jersey with a range of $6.15 to, wait for it, $6.15. Bold of them to go with that as a range, okay? I want you all to imagine trying to make a living on $16.50 and going to work and taking care of children. Okay, that is ridiculous. Now, it's true, people in the after-school program are underpaid. Maybe that's part of the problem. Maybe part of the superintendent's job should figure out how to pay the staff more, make the program better, do the job. A third reason is our town's values, right? And my friend Andy Rozzapo, I think, spoke to that. And y'all, if Andy's talking about something like that, please, for the love of God, listen to him. The great thing about our town is we by and large share values where we appreciate democratic action, we appreciate the common good, we respect everyone's rights. We reject the cruelty and the ugliness that is on display from our current regime, as human beings are stripped of basic human rights. Friends ask me what to do about the big picture, right? And I've seen posts on Facebooks about that. What should our handbook be, right? What do we do? And my boomer parents who raised me, they raised me on what my Gen Z kids would call a very cringe thing, but we had the bumper sticker. It was think globally, act locally. And the board, we all voted for you. We elected you. You can act locally. You can keep the ASP in district. You can take responsibility for treating ASP staff with dignity instead of feeding them to a corporation where the CEOs earn 60,000 times a teacher's salary. A no vote is a vote for our values and against the horror of Trump's murder bill. It really is, right? It is us saying, yes, we're being told we have no choice, just like everyone else is being told we have no choice. But by God, we're going to make a choice and we're going to stand up. If you've been waiting and you've been asking, how do we stand up? What do we do? Vote no, right? Vote no. And maybe you'll be in the minority, but you will have distinguished yourself as a person of principle who's willing to stand up. The board should vote no, and instead should tell our super to earn our salary by figuring out how to give our lowest paid district employees, paras and ASP staff a raise. My mother raised 3 kids on a para's salary, and it wasn't easy. Wait, actually, it wasn't possible. My mother raised 3 kids on a para's salary and under the table wages for babysitting and food stamps and LEAP assistance. And way back in the day, aid for family with dependent children. And that's really what's criminal about this. We need a complete and total reset. And somebody has to vote no at some point and say, hey, let's have a reset. Let's go to the community and let's try and do this different. Superintendent says the reason is to save money and offered what I thought was some of the most absurd, magical thinking, announcing that Champions had generously agreed to take a loss in the middle school program. If you believe that a for-profit is really going to do that they're going to indefinitely take a loss, right, then I have that proverbial bridge to sell you. The profit will come on the backs of workers, like my mom, and at the expense of our kids. And it'll be really, really bad. And what we may see is there may be a few wonderful years, just like those early years with Netflix when it was super cheap and we gave our account out to all our friends and everybody joined. And then we will see the enshittification as the overlords from the hedge funds and KinderCare, the parent company, squeeze Champions or spin them off and sell it on the basis of we've got all these great contracts with New Jersey schools, which we bullied boards into taking because we told them they had no choice, because superintendents didn't want to take responsibility for something that was an extra job, and because we were scared. So I encourage y'all to vote no. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rob. Do we have anyone else? Go back to Dee.
Samantha, go ahead. Samantha?
Hi, I apologize. Can you hear me now?
Yes, please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Samantha Rosar, and I live at 229 Raritan Ave. I think in this scenario, I'm a little bit of a unicorn because I have experienced both the Highland Park aftercare and Champions aftercare. And I will say there are gigantic and very concerning differences in the two. Everyone is talking about their values and how important their kids are and all of these wonderful things that sound great. However, I had a very different experience with the Highland Park aftercare. The very first week of school, the aftercare teacher almost sent the wrong child out with me because they did not verify anyone's licenses. I had to email Colin and tell him that he needed to retrain the staff to do so. Mind you, I have a court order that says my children's father is not allowed to pick them up. So you can understand how concerning it is that they weren't checking parents' licenses before releasing children. Second, I had a teacher in the Bartle school tell my 10-year-old son that he had herpes. My 6-year-old broke his arm and then got jumped by 2 kids. He had handprints around his neck, scratches all over his face, and not a single teacher in the aftercare program could tell me what happened, how it started, what they were doing about it, nothing. I pulled Colin aside, I pulled principals aside, I contacted everyone you could imagine, and to this day has still not gotten any rectification of what is going on with those kids. They're still being allowed to hang out around my son, that no one is doing anything. Now, when my kids were in Champions in Marlborough Township, none of this was allowed. I sent them the court order and they checked every single person's license before my kids were allowed to be released. If my kids got into an altercation with another kid, the kid that started the altercation, even if it was my own, was not allowed to go back to aftercare for the next day as a punishment to, understand their actions and realize they can't hurt other children. Like Champions was so much more on top of the issues with my children that I actually felt that they were safe. And I don't feel that way now. I send my children to school with a cell phone so they can call me if something happens in aftercare because I'm not comfortable. And I know that that's against the school policies, and I've gotten nonsense emails from their teachers about it. But what other choice do I have? The teachers aren't keeping an eye on them. They're not making sure that they're safe. When my son broke his arm, no one even called me. I didn't find out until I showed up to the school to pick my son up and rushed him to the emergency room because I could clearly tell it was broken just by looking at him. I understand that we want to keep things local, and I really hope that Champions does hire the current staff that's willing to be trained, because I don't want people to lose their jobs. That's not my ultimate goal. But at the end of the day, these are my children, and my job as their mother is to make sure that they're safe. And I would hope that the school board cared enough about my kids to do the same. That's all I have to say, and I thank you guys for listening.
Dee? Dee, you're up. We just can't hear you. Oh, okay. Dee, did you want to talk? No. Okay. Close public meeting, public
Yeah.
comment.
So that's it. There's no one in person who'd like to speak, and there's no one left online who'd like to speak. Okay, in that case, I will close public comment. And then we just move to the motion.
Read the motion.
I move that the Board of Education accept the recommendation of the superintendent to approve awarding RFP CC 25-01 before and after school care program provider to KCE Champions LLC, the vendor that met the evaluation criteria in accordance with NJSA 18A:18A-4.1 and 40A:11-4.5. 5 RFPs were received on June 24th, 2025.
Do I have a second?
Oh, second.
Second.
Dr. Beatty?
I mentioned this was a really difficult vote for me. And I really appreciate the work of the administration and the committee. I actually feel from my vantage point that I have to vote no.
Ms. Cassell Dunn?
I want to reiterate that this is my choice. I was against outsourcing 2 years ago. I am really impressed with this program. I believe is the best possible program for our students at this moment in time. I'm voting yes.
Dr. Coleman is absent, correct?
Right.
She's not online? Okay. Dr. Pixley?
Yes, I also think it's important to reiterate that from my perspective, this wasn't at least going through the process. It was done because it is a great option from our evaluation. And I do have experience also with the kinder care program. And so, I think it's, I am proud of the process and I vote yes.
Dr. Schoolman?
Yes.
Ms. Stanio?
So like I mentioned before, I'm actually very much against privatization and outsourcing, especially for a private equity company. But from my vantage point and the things that I've seen and know of, and the fact that I do have kids in this school too, who also use an after school program, I'm going to have to vote yes.
Ms. Bardman?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, in that case, I move to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
Thank you, everyone. Good night and congratulations.